My name is Jessica Chen and I am 29 years old. Right now I am standing in the hallway of my childhood home, hiding behind the coat closet because I just heard something at our Christmas party that made my hands shake. After spending 10 years sending money home every single month, my mother just told everyone at the party, "Jessica doesn't need to come anymore. We don't want her here." I said nothing back except, "If that's what you want." But then my grandfather spoke up and asked, "Is this because she found out about the money you took from her bank account?" Everyone stopped talking. The music stopped playing. If you have ever been hurt by someone you trusted with all your heart, please hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments what country you are from. I was always different from everyone else in my family. The only one to finish high school. The only one to get a job in the city. The only one to leave our tiny village in California. My life was not easy, but there was one person who always stood beside me, my grandfather, William. When my dad got sick and couldn't work anymore, Grandpa William helped my mom take care of our family, while my mother cleaned houses to pay for food and rent. Growing up, I saw my mother worry about money every single day. The scared look on her face when bills came in the mail. The way she would cry after phone calls with the electric company. The nights when she sat alone counting coins to buy bread. I told myself I would change everything. I studied every night, won prizes at school, and got 3 jobs when I turned 16. By the time I was 23, I had opened my own bakery business that made special cakes for weddings. 4 years after that, my bakery had shops in 5 different cities. When my business started making good money, I wanted to share everything with my family. At first it was small things like paying the water bill or buying new shoes for my little cousins. Then I started paying for bigger things. I gave my sister money to fix her car. I paid for my aunt's hospital visit. I bought school supplies for all the children in our family. I was happy to do it. After growing up with nothing, being able to help my family felt like winning. My grandfather always told me to be careful. "Family matters, Jessica, but you also matter," he would say when we talked on video calls each Sunday. I never listened to his worries. These people were my blood. How could helping them ever be bad? 3 years ago, my mother called me crying so hard I could barely understand her words. Our family home, the house my grandfather had built with his own hands 40 years ago, was going to be taken away by the bank. Also, she had a dream to open a small clothing store that would help her make money on her own. She just needed $500,000. It was a huge amount of money, even for me, but I couldn't let my family lose the house. The house where I learned to walk. Where my grandfather still slept in the room at the back. I sent the money right away with a plan that she would pay me back slowly with very low extra fees. My mother held me and cried and promised everything would get better now. For some time it looked like things were better. The clothing store opened and people liked it. My mother smiled more than I had seen in many years. My Uncle Richard, who always said mean things about my success, started being nice to me. My sister Laura, who stopped talking to me after I bought her the car, began calling me again to chat. My aunt invited me to lunch with her friends. Family parties happened more often, and everyone expected me to bring expensive wine and presents for everyone. This Christmas was going to be perfect. I bought special gifts that I spent weeks choosing. A rare baseball card from my sports-loving sister. A cooking class from my uncle. A weekend trip to the mountains for my aunt. And for my mother, a beautiful ring with our family birthstones in it. For Grandpa, I hired an artist to make a wooden music box that played his favorite song from when he was young. I felt excited about the party even though I was worried that my mother had stopped paying me back for the last 4 months. She kept telling me the store wasn't selling much clothing during winter, and I didn't want to push her. Family is family. Money is just paper. At least that's what I thought before this Christmas when everything I believed about my family broke into pieces. Looking back now, there were signs I chose not to see. The way my mother's voice changed on phone calls, more demanding and less thankful. How my aunt and sister would stop talking when I walked into rooms. My brother's strange questions about my bakery business and if I planned to close it down someday. Even my grandfather had tried to warn me 2 months ago, asking if I was sure my mother was being honest about the clothing store. But I was too busy, too trusting, too worried about keeping everyone happy to notice what was happening right in front of my eyes. When I arrived at my mother's house this Christmas afternoon, I had no idea that by tonight I would be hiding in the hallway, tears running down my face, finally understanding who my family really was. The pretty White House was covered with brand new Christmas decorations that must have cost thousands of dollars, shining and twinkling as if laughing at me while I parked and got the wrapped presents from my car. I didn't know that the real present this Christmas would be learning a hard but important truth. I got there at 2 in the afternoon, 4 hours before the party was supposed to start. I always came early to help my mother cook the food, something we did together ever since I was little. The back door was open, so I walked in calling out happily, "Merry Christmas, everyone. I'm here to help make dinner." The house smelled amazing like ginger cookies and roasted chicken, but my mother's face when she saw me was cold. "You're too early," she said without smiling. "I always come early to help," I said, confused why she seemed annoyed. "Remember, we always make the potato salad together." "I made the potato salad yesterday," she said, walking away from me. "Your aunt is helping me now." I followed her into the kitchen where my aunt was cutting vegetables. She didn't even look up at me. "Merry Christmas, Aunt Susan," I said, putting my bag on a chair. Hum," she said, staring at the carrots. I looked in the cupboard for the ingredients to make my special fruit punch. "Laura already brought punch," my mother said quickly. "The expensive kind from the fancy store downtown." "Oh." I closed the cupboard door, suddenly feeling like I didn't belong in the kitchen where I had cooked hundreds of meals. "Can I do something else?" My mother and aunt looked at each other with a strange expression. "Just go sit in the living room," my mother said, her voice too sweet. "You're always working so hard, right? Take a rest." As I turned to leave, I heard my aunt whisper to my mother, "Does she think she can just show up and be in charge like she pays for everything?" My mother laughed quietly. Shocked, I walked quickly to the living room, which had all new furniture I had never seen before. The old family pictures on the shelf were gone. New photos were there instead, and I wasn't in most of them. I picked up one picture from Thanksgiving last year. I remembered being there, standing next to my grandfather, but in this photo, someone had cut me out. My 10-year-old nephew Kevin ran down the stairs with my niece Sophia behind him. When they saw me, they both stopped walking. "Aunt Jessica," Kevin said carefully. "Mom said you probably wouldn't come today." "Why would she say that?" I asked, really confused. "I come every Christmas." Sophia, who is only 7, looked at her brother nervously and then asked me, "Are you still rich, Aunt Jessica?" "Sophia," Kevin said in a warning voice. "Mom said we shouldn't ask about money." Before I could say anything, my sister Laura rushed into the room with a man I'd never met. She hugged me quickly and stiffly. "Oh, you came. Kids, come help me in the kitchen." As they left, I heard Sophia ask, "Is Aunt Jessica the one Grandma says only cares about herself?" Now, for the next 2 hours, more family members arrived. My brother Marcus and his wife Kelly. My cousins from my mother's side of the family. Some neighbors who always came to our parties. Everyone said hello to me quickly and then walked away fast. Nobody looked me in the eyes. Nobody asked about my life or my bakery, things they usually wanted to know about. When it was time for the yearly family photo, in front of the Christmas tree, I walked over to stand with everyone gathering in the living room. "Actually," my mother said loudly so everyone could hear, "I was thinking just close family for this picture." I stopped walking, confused. "I am close family." My mother waved her hand like she was brushing away a fly. "You know what I mean. Just the people who are always here, not the person who's too busy traveling." The room became completely quiet. My sister pushed her new boyfriend forward to stand where I usually stood, right next to our grandfather, who looked very worried. "Carol," my grandfather said to my mother, "Jessica is your daughter. She should be in the family photo." "It's okay, Grandpa," I said fast, not wanting to cause problems. "I can take the picture of everyone." While I took several photos of my smiling family, I saw through the doorway that the dining room table was set for dinner. My usual seat at the table was gone. There was a big flower vase where I normally sat. When I went to get a glass of water from the kitchen, I counted the plates. Only 13. But there were 14 people here, including me. My brother Marcus found me staring at the plates. "Hey," he said uncomfortably. "You okay? What's happening?" I asked him directly. "Why is everyone acting so weird?" He moved from foot to foot nervously. "Look, I don't know everything, but Mom has been saying stuff about you." "What stuff?" "That you've been mean to her about the money. That you told her she had to pay back everything immediately when her store had a bad month. That you refused to help when Sophia got hurt because you said we all use you for money." I felt like someone had hit me in the stomach. "What injury? When did Sophia get hurt?" Marcus looked confused. "The broken arm last summer when she fell off the swing. Mom said she asked you for help with a hospital bill, and you said you were done being the family's money machine." My brain felt like it was spinning. I had been out of the country last summer for 3 weeks working on opening a new bakery. Nobody called me. Nobody texted me. I never knew Sophia broke her arm. "Marcus, I paid for Kevin's broken tooth last year when he got hit with a baseball. Why would I say no to helping Sophia? I didn't even know she was hurt." He looked doubtful, but before he could answer, my mother called everyone to come eat. As I walked to the dining room, I noticed a new painting on the wall, an expensive one I recognized from an art show in San Francisco. It probably cost at least $20,000. Next to it was a photo of my mother on a beach somewhere tropical, wearing designer sunglasses and a dress with the price tag still visible in my memory from a magazine. Something felt very wrong. My mother said the clothing store was doing badly, that she couldn't pay me back because she was barely making any money. But the house was full of new expensive things. New furniture, expensive art, pictures of fancy vacations I had never heard about. When I grabbed a folding chair from the garage and squeezed it in at the corner of the table, I started wondering what else I didn't know about what my mother had been doing with my money. After we all sat down, my mother stood up at the end of the table holding her glass for a speech. "To family," she said, looking at everyone except me. "The people who are always there, no matter what." Everyone mumbled agreement and raised their glasses. I lifted my water cup halfway, trying to catch my grandfather's eyes from across the table. He was watching my mother with a worried, angry face. As food was passed around, I tried talking normally to my cousin sitting next to me. "How's your new puppy?" "Fine," he said shortly, then turned to talk to his wife on his other side. When my aunt asked if anyone had plans for spring break, I mentioned maybe visiting a new bakery location in Seattle. "Always working," my mother said loudly. "Some people think work is more important than family." The whole table got awkwardly quiet. My sister Laura quickly started talking about something else, but it kept happening. Every time I spoke, my mother found a way to say something mean or make me look bad. When dinner was finished, I got up to use the bathroom. In the hallway, I accidentally bumped into my grandfather, who grabbed my arm to steady himself. "Something is wrong here," he whispered, looking over his shoulder nervously. "Your mother has been acting strange for almost a year now. New clothes, new car, always talking about big business deals." "The store isn't making money," I said quietly. "At least that's what she told me when she stopped paying back the loan." My grandfather looked shocked. "Store? What store?" "The clothing store I gave her the money for. That and saving the house from being taken by the bank." My grandfather's face went white. "Jessica, there is no clothing store. And the house was never in danger. Who told you those things?" Before I could answer, my sister Laura came over. "Grandpa, Mom needs you. Something about your medicine." As my grandfather slowly walked away, Laura stayed there, not looking at my eyes. "Is it true?" I asked her. "There's no store." Laura looked nervous down the hall. "Look, I can't talk now. But you should know Mom has been saying lots of things about you. That you're threatening to take her to court. That you're sorry you ever helped the family. That you think we're all stupid now that you're rich." "None of that's true," I said firmly. "Why would I think that?" I don't know what's real anymore, Laura said. But 2 months ago when Mom bought her brand new car, she said it was because the clothing store was doing really well. I asked where the store was because I wanted to buy something and she got really angry. Said I was being nosy just like you. A memory came back to me, sharp and clear. My nephew Kevin asking 8 months ago if he could work at Grandma's store when he turned 14. My mother quickly changed the subject, saying the store probably wouldn't last that long. I walked back to the dining room just as dessert was being brought out. My mother was showing everyone an expensive watch, saying it was a gift from a business partner. My aunt was looking at it and saying how beautiful it was. Business must be going well, I said casually, sitting down. My mother froze for a second before smiling. It's fine. Not that you care. Actually, I'd love to visit the store, I continued, watching her closely. Maybe tomorrow after everyone goes home. I could help you with advertising. My mother's face went pale. It's closed for Christmas week. Until when? That's none of your business, Jessica, she snapped. Just because you loaned me money doesn't mean you control my life. Everyone at the table went silent again. My brother Marcus looked confused. What store are you talking about? My mother laughed nervously. Just a small project. Nothing important. But you said the store was your main job now, Marcus said, confused. When I asked to borrow your sewing machine last month, you said it was at the store. My mother stood up fast. Who wants coffee? She rushed to the kitchen before anyone could answer. I got up and followed her. In the kitchen, I found her typing frantically on her phone. Mom, I said quietly. We need to talk about what's happening. Nothing's happening, she said without looking up. Except you making everyone uncomfortable on Christmas. I loaned you $500,000 for a store that doesn't exist and to save this house from something that never happened. Where did the money go? She finally looked up, her face hard and mean. You owed me that money after everything I gave up for you. The dreams I never followed. The life I could have had if I wasn't raising you by myself. I never said you didn't deserve help, I said, shocked by how much she hated me. But you lied about why you needed it, and now you're making everyone hate me. Why? You think you're so perfect, she hissed, stepping closer. Perfect Jessica, the rich daughter who saves everyone. Did you ever think that your help makes us all feel tiny? That every time you give us money, you're really just showing off? That was never what I meant, I said, trying not to cry. I just wanted to help. Well, maybe I don't want your help anymore. Maybe nobody does. The kitchen door opened and my aunt walked in, stopping when she felt how angry we both were. Everything okay? She asked, looking at both of us. Fine, my mother said quickly, grabbing the coffee pot. Jessica was just telling me how disappointed she is in all of us simple people. I never said that, I protested, looking at my aunt. Aunt Susan, has Mom told you why she needed the loan? My aunt wouldn't look at me. It's not my business. She told me it was for a clothing store and to save the house, but Grandpa just said there was never any danger of losing the house. And apparently there's no store either. Susan shifted uncomfortably. Carol might have mentioned buying a beach house. Something about renting it out to tourists. A beach house. I repeated, the pieces starting to fit together. Where? That's enough, my mother snapped. Susan, take the coffee to the table. As my aunt hurried out with the coffee, I pulled out my phone and opened my bank app. I scrolled back to find the loan transfer from 3 years ago. $500,000 sent to my mother with only 7 small payments of $2,500 each marked as received before they stopped completely. You took $500,000 from me by lying, I said quietly. And instead of admitting you can't pay it back, you're turning my family against me. My mother lifted her chin. You never cared about getting paid back before. All those years of giving us money and presents. Why care now? This wasn't a present, Mom. It was a loan for something specific that turned out to be a lie. So now you regret helping your family. Typical. The minute money matters, blood means nothing. I stared at her, finally seeing clearly how she had been controlling me for years. This isn't about the money. It's about the lies. About you making everyone think I'm a bad person. Believe whatever you want, she said, picking up a tray of dessert bowls. But remember who raised you, who gave up everything for you. If anyone deserves something, it's me. She pushed past me toward the dining room. I stood frozen in the kitchen, my mind trying to understand everything I had learned. The $500,000, the fake clothing store, the beach house, the family members who now hated me. The careful plan to make me look bad before I could discover what she did. Taking a deep breath, I followed my mother back to the dining room where everyone was now eating pie and drinking coffee. I sat down in my corner chair, watching as she played the perfect hostess, pouring drinks and laughing at jokes. The woman I had known my whole life suddenly looked like a stranger, and I wondered how I had been so blind to who she really was. As coffee and dessert went on, I sat quietly, watching how the family acted with new understanding. My mother was the center of everything, as always. But now I saw how she controlled every conversation, how she made herself look like the victim, the giver, the heart of the family. When my cousin mentioned getting a promotion at work, my mother quickly jumped in. Remember when I helped you practice for your interview? I always knew you were smart. When someone mentioned presents, she announced it was time to open gifts. I have something for everyone, she smiled, pointing to presents under the tree. Nothing fancy like Jessica gives, but from my heart. I watched as family members opened her gifts. Expensive things that someone with no money from a failing store shouldn't be able to buy. A designer purse for my sister. An expensive spa weekend for my aunt, almost exactly like what I had bought. New tablets for all the kids. When it was my grandfather's turn to open his gift from my mother, I held my breath. A vacation to anywhere in the world, Dad, she announced proudly. For you and a friend, anywhere you want to go. My grandfather took it with a tight smile, his eyes looking at me with concern. When it was time for my gifts to be opened, I handed them out with shaking hands. My sister Laura seemed genuinely happy with the mountain trip voucher. My brother Marcus barely looked at the baseball card, mumbling that it was nice. My nephews and nieces said thank you politely but without excitement. When I gave my mother her gift, the small box with a birthstone ring, she opened it like it might explode. "Oh," she said flatly, looking at the ring. "It's nice. Simple. Look inside," I encouraged. "There's an engraving." She read it silently, and for a moment something soft showed in her face. But she quickly put it back in the box without putting it on. "Thank you," she said formally, setting it aside. My grandfather was the last to get his gift from me. As he unwrapped the wooden music box that played his favorite song, tears filled his eyes. "Jessica, how did you find someone to make this? I haven't heard this song in 40 years. I found a recording online and had it specially made. There's a photo compartment inside too." My grandfather pressed the box to his chest, his voice full of emotion. "This is the most thoughtful thing anyone has ever given me." I saw my mother watching, her jaw tight, clearly upset that my gift made him so happy. As everyone started cleaning up wrapping paper, she suddenly stood up, tapping her glass with a spoon for attention. "I have something to say," she announced. The room got quiet as everyone turned to look at her. "This past year has made me think a lot. About family. About loyalty. About what we owe each other." She paused, her eyes landing on me with clear coldness. Some people think family relationships can be bought, that they can come in with big gifts and money and take over, making everyone else feel small and helpless. A few uncomfortable looks passed around the table. My grandfather put down his music box, his face alarmed. "Carol," he warned, but my mother kept going. "I've decided that this family needs to be independent, without certain people who have been controlling us." She turned fully toward me now, her voice loud and clear. "So Jessica, don't come to any family events. We're cutting you off." The harsh words hung in the air. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Everyone stared at me, waiting for me to cry or yell. But strangely I felt calm. After everything I learned today, this felt almost like a relief, the final proof that my relationship with my mother had never been what I thought. Okay, I understand, I said quietly, my voice steadier than I expected. My mother looked surprised, clearly expecting me to cry or beg. Into the awkward silence, my grandfather leaned forward, his eyes sharp with sudden anger. Carol, he said, his voice cutting through the tension. Is that why she stopped paying back the $500,000 loan? The entire room went dead silent. My sister's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. My brother Marcus froze holding a napkin. My Aunt Susan's eyes went wide. What loan? Someone whispered. My mother's face turned bright red. That's private, she stammered. And not part of this conversation. $500,000 sounds very much part of this conversation, my grandfather said firmly, looking around at all the shocked faces. Did all of you know Jessica loaned your mother that much money for a clothing store and to save this house? He turned back to my mother. A store that doesn't exist and a crisis that never happened. Dad, please, my mother hissed, trying to control the situation. This isn't the right time. When is the right time? I asked, finding strength in my voice. After you've turned everyone against me. After you've made them all believe I'm some terrible person who doesn't care about family. That's ridiculous, my mother scoffed. But her eyes looked nervously around the table. Nobody's against you. I just think it's better if we have space from your influence. Carol, my brother Marcus interrupted, his face confused. You told me Jessica refused to help with Sophia's broken arm, but she says she never even knew Sophia got hurt. My sister Laura turned to me sharply. You knew. Mom said she called you 10 times. I was in another country, I said. Nobody called me. Nobody sent a message. I found out about it 20 minutes ago from Marcus. Laura looked at our mother uncertainly. You said you talked to her directly. That she laughed and said we always wanted handouts. I would never say that, I said, my voice cracking. My Aunt Susan cleared her throat. Carol, what about the beach house in Florida? You said that was from your clothing store making lots of money. What beach house? Several voices asked at once. My mother slammed her hand on the table. Enough. This is my house and I won't be questioned on Christmas. Jessica has always acted like she's better than us with her success. Made us feel small with her charity. I'm just saying we don't need that anymore. You bought a beach house with Jessica's loan? My grandfather asked, his voice rising with anger. While telling her you couldn't pay her back because the store was failing. A store that doesn't even exist. The room erupted with confused questions and angry accusations. My nephews and nieces looked scared by the adults' raised voices. My brother and sister were demanding answers from our mother. My aunt and uncle were whispering frantically to each other. In all the chaos, I stood quietly, getting my bag and jacket. Nobody noticed me leaving except my grandfather, who caught my eye and gave a small, sad nod of understanding. I stepped out onto the porch, the cold December air hitting my tear-covered face. Behind me, I could still hear the raised voices, my mother's excuses getting more desperate, my siblings' demands for truth getting louder. I made it to my car before I started crying. Sitting in the driver's seat, I finally let the tears flow freely, sad not just about the money, but about the trust one had given someone who never valued it. Through the windows of the house, I could see shadows of people gesturing, the family fight continuing without me. I started my car, knowing that whatever was happening inside that house, everything had changed forever. I didn't drive far. 2 blocks from my mother's house. I pulled over because I couldn't see through my tears. I turned off the car and let myself cry properly for the first time in years. Not just for today, but for a lifetime of trying to earn love through giving money, of thinking gratitude meant the same thing as being valued. A tap on my window made me jump. My grandfather stood there, wrapped in his winter coat, his music box tucked carefully under one arm. I unlocked the door and he got into the passenger seat, moving surprisingly fast for someone in his 70s. I told them I needed fresh air, he explained, putting the music box safely in the back seat. But I was really following you. I couldn't let you drive away alone like this. What happened after I left? I asked, wiping my eyes with my sleeve. Chaos, he said simply. Your mother tried to deny everything, but too many holes appeared in her story. Marcus called her out about Sophia's broken arm. Laura mentioned the beach house she supposedly visited but could never actually go to. Your aunt finally admitted she knew there was no store. He reached over and held my hand. Jessica, why didn't you tell me about the loan? About the store story. I didn't want to worry you, I admitted. And I believed Mom. She said the house was going to be taken away, that she'd been hiding it from you to keep you from stressing. The store seemed like a good idea, a way for her to have her own income. My grandfather sighed heavily. The house was never in danger. It's been paid off for years. And your mother hasn't worked at all since she got that loan. She told everyone she had investments and business deals. I thought maybe she had finally learned how to handle money. I never imagined that she took the money by lying. I finished for him. Not just that, my grandfather said, his voice becoming hard, that she would try to turn the family against you when you started asking about being paid back. We sat quietly for a moment, both of us understanding how serious this was. What happened with the beach house? Finally asked. Apparently she bought a condo right on the ocean in Florida. From what your aunt let slip, it's very fancy. She's been going there with friends, saying the trips were for business. I shook my head in disbelief. And the lies about me. About me refusing to help with Sophia's arm. My grandfather squeezed my hand. Complete lies. When your sister realized you hadn't even known about the injury, she was shocked. Apparently your mother has been saying bad things about you for months. Small comments at first, then bigger accusations. By the time Christmas came, she'd convinced most of them that you were planning to sue the family, that you regretted ever helping anyone. Why? Asked, though I already knew. Why work so hard to do this? I think she knew you would eventually discover the truth about the loan, my grandfather reasoned. About the missing store and the beach property. Better to make you look bad first. Make everyone doubt you before you could make them doubt her. The sound of a car coming made us both look up. My brother Marcus's truck pulled up next to us. He got out and walked over carefully, like he was afraid I might drive away. I rolled down my window. Marcus, can I sit with you? He asked. There's more you need to know. I nodded and he got into the back seat, being careful not to bump my grandfather's music box. I'm so sorry, he started immediately. I should have questioned what Mom was telling us about you. It never made sense, the way she described you becoming suddenly cold and mean. Not after all the years you've helped us. What happened after I left? Asked him. Mom tried to control what everyone thought, but it fell apart fast. Too many things didn't match up. Laura found a receipt in Mom's purse for the Florida condo bills while looking for car keys. $6,000 every month, Jessica, for a property that supposedly doesn't exist. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by how big the lie was. And the store. There never was one, he confirmed. Mom admitted it when Uncle Dave wouldn't let her avoid the question. She said she deserved the money after raising ungrateful children. That it was her retirement money. Retirement money. I repeated, feeling numb. $500,000. We didn't know, Marcus insisted. About any of it. The loan, the lies, the way she was talking about you behind your back. I feel sick thinking about how I believed her. How I stopped calling you because of things she said. A second car pulled up behind Marcus's truck. My sister Laura got out, rushing through the cold to find us. The back seat was getting crowded as she squeezed in next to Marcus. I had to find you, she said, breathing hard. Everything is coming out now. All of it. Aunt Susan finally admitted Mom told her months ago there was no store, that the loan was her payment for everything she sacrificed. Laura was crying now, her makeup running down her face. Jessica, she told me you said awful things about how I parent my kids, that you thought I was raising bratty, spoiled children, that you were only helping with their school costs because you felt sorry for us. I would never say that, I promised her. I love your children so much. I know that now, Laura sobbed. How did we let her manipulate us like this? How did we believe her? Because she's our mother, Marcus said simply. We trusted her. My grandfather had been listening quietly, but now he spoke. Your mother has always struggled with money. Always been jealous of people who had more. Always felt like the world owed her something. But this, he shook his head sadly. I never thought she would go this far. She told us Grandpa was getting confused and forgetting things, Laura revealed. That we shouldn't trust everything he says. But that's not true either, is it? My mind is perfectly clear, my grandfather said firmly. Another lie to discredit anyone who might expose her. The understanding of how complete my mother's lies had been was overwhelming. She hadn't just lied about the loan. She had built an entire false story about who I was, systematically turning my family against me to protect herself from facing what she'd done. There are other people who need to hear this, Marcus said. Cousins, aunts, uncles, people who have been believing Mom's version of things for months. Aunt Susan feels terrible, Laura added. She said Mom convinced her you were using the family, that your generosity was just a way to control everyone. And she believed that. Asked her. Despite everything. Mom can be very convincing, Marcus said gently. And she knows everyone's weak spots, exactly where to plant doubt. My grandfather turned in his seat to look at me directly. Jessica, I know this is overwhelming. Discovering someone you love, someone you trusted completely, could betray you so deeply. But you need to know that not everyone believed her. I never did. And now the truth is out. What happens now? Asked, looking at all three of them. Now, my grandfather said firmly, you stop giving your mother money. You stop enabling behavior that hurts you and her. And if you want that loan repaid, you take legal action. Legal action against my own mother. Your mother stole from you, Marcus said bluntly. She lied to get that money, used it for personal luxury, and then tried to destroy your reputation when you asked about payment. If it were anyone else, wouldn't you do something? He was right. But the thought of taking my mother to court made me feel sick. I need time to think, I said. This is all too much right now. Of course, my grandfather soothed. But know this, Jessica. Whatever you decide, you're not alone. The truth has a way of coming out. And now that it has, those of us who truly love you are here. Laura reached forward from the back seat and touched my shoulder. We're here and we're so sorry we ever doubted you. As we sat there in my car, for members of a broken family trying to process a betrayal none of us saw coming, I felt something change inside me. The hurt was still fresh, the feeling of betrayal sharp. But for the first time in years, I wasn't carrying my family's weight alone. My grandfather, brother, and sister weren't looking to me for money. They were offering something much more valuable: truth, accountability, and real support. Thank you for coming after me, I said softly. For not letting me drive away thinking everyone had turned against me. Family doesn't abandon family, my grandfather said firmly. Real family, that is. And real family tells the truth even when it hurts. As more relatives started texting Marcus and Laura, asking where they'd gone and what was happening, it became clear that what happened at the dinner table was only the beginning. The carefully built web of lies my mother had created was falling apart quickly. And as it fell, painful truths were coming out. Truths that would forever change how I saw my role in my family and how I understood the difference between love and obligation. The days after Christmas were filled with emotional conversations and painful discoveries. More family members reached out, some apologetic, others still confused about what really happened. My Aunt Susan called crying, admitting she had known about the Florida condo for months but had been told to keep it secret by my mother. My Uncle Dave sent a long text message detailing conversations where my mother had painted me as increasingly controlling and judgmental. Cousins I had been close to admitted they had stopped calling because of things they'd been told I supposedly said about them. Through it all, my grandfather stayed strong, living at my apartment instead of going back to his room at my mother's house. "I can't stay there now," he said simply. Not knowing what I know. 4 days after Christmas, my mother finally called. I stared at her name on my phone screen, my heart beating fast. My grandfather, sitting across from me at my kitchen table, nodded encouragingly. "Hello," I answered, putting the call on speaker. "Jessica." My mother's voice was tight. "We need to talk about what's been happening. The family is in chaos because you decided to discuss private financial matters at Christmas dinner." I took a deep breath. "I didn't bring up the loan. Grandpa did." "Your grandfather shouldn't have interfered in business between you and me," she snapped. "Now everyone's choosing sides, making assumptions. This is exactly why I wanted to create distance between you and the family." "Distance based on lies," I said, my voice growing stronger. "You told everyone I refused to help with Sophia's arm, Mom. An injury I knew nothing about. You told them I was threatening the family legally. You told them I had become cold and selfish. None of that was true." "I may have exaggerated some things," she said without real regret. "But the fact remains, you hold your financial help over this family's head. Everything comes with invisible strings." "What strings? When have I ever asked for anything back for helping?" "It's the unspoken obligation," she insisted. "The way everyone feels like they owe you less than you. Do you know what it's like to be the mother of the successful daughter who has to rescue everyone? How small that makes me feel." For the first time I saw the real problem. Not the money itself, but what it meant. My success highlighting her sense of failure. My generosity making her feel diminished instead of supported. "This isn't about how I made you feel," I said firmly. "This is about you taking $500,000 from me by lying, using it to buy a luxury beach property, and then turning my family against me when I asked about getting paid back." "I deserved that money," she replied, her voice becoming hard. "After everything I sacrificed for you growing up, the opportunities one gave up, the career I never had because I was raising you." "Then you should have asked for it honestly," I countered. "Not invented a fake store and a crisis that didn't exist. Not lied to me and everyone else." "So what now?" she demanded. "You're going to sue your own mother? Drag the family through legal battles? Prove to everyone that money means more to you than blood?" It was the same manipulative trick she'd always used, twisting my actions to make me the villain. But this time I saw through it clearly. "This isn't about the money," I said quietly. "It's about trust, about honesty, about respect. You broke all of those when you lied to get that loan. You broke them again when you tried to turn everyone against me instead of admitting what you'd done." "So self-righteous," she scoffed. "Always the perfect daughter." "I'm not perfect, Mom, but I didn't deserve this. None of us did." My grandfather, who had been listening silently, leaned toward the phone. "Carol, what you've done is unforgivable. Not just to Jessica but to all of us. Using us as tools in your deception, turning child against parent, sibling against sibling." "Stay out of this, Dad," my mother hissed. "This doesn't concern you." "It concerns all of us," my grandfather replied calmly. "Family is built on trust, and you've shattered that trust completely." There was a long pause before my mother spoke again, her voice now calculating. "Fine. If that's how you both feel, I have nothing more to say. Except this, Jessica. If you pursue legal action over the loan, be prepared for what that will do to this family. Some wounds never heal." It was a threat, clear and simple. Pursue repayment and face permanent family division. Let it go and what? Pretend none of this happened. Continue to be manipulated and lied to. Allow her to keep $500,000 gotten through fraud. "I need time to consider my options," I said finally. "But whatever I decide, things can't go back to how they were. Too many truths have come out." "Suit yourself," she replied coldly. "But remember, families are supposed to support each other unconditionally. If you can't do that, maybe you don't deserve to be part of this one." The call ended abruptly. I sat staring at my phone, her final manipulative statement ringing in my ears. She's trying to reframe this as you abandoning the family rather than her betraying your trust, my grandfather observed. Classic deflection. I nodded, too emotionally exhausted to respond. Over the next week, a clear division formed within the extended family. Most rallied around me once they understood the full extent of my mother's lies, but a few, primarily those who had directly benefited from her newfound wealth, remained loyal to her, repeating her story that I was money-obsessed and vindictive. My brother Marcus and sister Laura visited often, bringing their children, who seemed relieved to discover their aunt wasn't the cold, judgmental person their grandmother had described. My Aunt Susan made a tearful apology, admitting she had been envious of my success for years, making her easy to manipulate. 12 days after Christmas, I made my decision. With the support of my grandfather, siblings, and a family lawyer recommended by a trusted friend, I sent my mother a formal letter demanding repayment of the outstanding loan balance with a reasonable payment plan option. The letter detailed the fraudulent circumstances under which the loan was obtained and indicated that legal action would follow if a response wasn't received within 30 days. My mother retaliated with a lengthy email to the entire extended family, portraying herself as the victim of a greedy, ungrateful daughter. Few were convinced now that they knew the truth, but it still hurt to see her doubling down rather than taking responsibility. You need to stop thinking of her as the mother you wished you had, my grandfather advised gently one evening as we sat in my living room, and see her as the person she actually is. How did I not see it before? I wondered aloud. All the manipulation, the guilt trips, the subtle ways she turned family members against each other? Because you wanted to believe the best of her, my grandfather said. We all did. And because she counted on your generosity and conflict avoidance to keep you from questioning too deeply. It was true. I'd spent my adult life trying to make up for the financial struggles of my childhood, believing that providing material support was the ultimate expression of love. In doing so, I'd enabled patterns of dependency and entitlement that had led to this massive betrayal. I need to set boundaries, I said, the realization both frightening and freeing. Not just with Mom but with everyone. Financial boundaries. Emotional boundaries. Yes, my grandfather agreed. Love doesn't mean being an endless well for others to drain. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. That night I wrote letters, not legal ones but personal ones, to each family member who had been part of my life. I didn't send them, but the exercise helped me understand what healthy relationships might look like moving forward, what I was willing to give and what I needed in return, what behaviors I would no longer accept and what boundaries I needed to establish. The next morning I called a family meeting at my apartment. Not everyone came. My mother and her few remaining supporters refused, but most did, filling my living room with the people who had been part of my life for decades. Thank you for coming, I began, my voice steadier than I expected. The past 3 weeks have been difficult for all of us. Truths have come out that have changed how we see each other and ourselves. I looked around at the faces watching me, some still carrying shame for having believed the worst about me, others angry at having been manipulated, all uncertain about where we went from here. I want to be clear about something, I continued. This isn't just about the loan or the lies around it. It's about how we function as a family, about the patterns we've created that aren't healthy for any of us. I took a deep breath. I've been an enabler. By trying to solve every financial problem, by being the safety net that never fails, I've contributed to dynamics that ultimately hurt us all. That ends today. The room was silent, everyone listening carefully. I love you all, I said, my voice softening. That hasn't changed and won't change. But love doesn't mean sacrificing my own well-being or allowing myself to be manipulated or taken advantage of. It doesn't mean accepting dishonesty or allowing boundaries to be crossed. My grandfather nodded encouragingly from his seat by the window. Moving forward, I won't be the family bank, I stated clearly. I will still help in true emergencies, still celebrate achievements, still be part of your lives if you want me. But on equal ground, with mutual respect, honesty and healthy boundaries. To my surprise, the reaction wasn't anger or disappointment, but relief. Many admitted the uneven financial dynamic had made them uncomfortable too, creating unspoken debts and resentments. They hadn't known how to address it without seeming ungrateful for the help I'd provided. "What about your mother?" my aunt finally asked. "What happens with her now?" "I have to proceed with legal action," I said firmly. "Not out of revenge, but because allowing her to keep money obtained through fraud would only teach her that her behavior is acceptable. It isn't, and there have to be consequences." There were nods of understanding around the room. Nobody tried to defend her actions or convince me to let it go. The evidence of her deliberate lies was too overwhelming, the hurt she'd caused too widespread. As the gathering ended hours later, I stood at the door saying goodbye to each person individually. My sister Laura hugged me tightly. "I feel like I've gotten my sister back," she whispered. "The real you, not the fake version Mom created." My brother Marcus shook his head regretfully. "I should have seen through it. Should have questioned why her stories about you never matched the sister I'd known my whole life." "We all should have," I assured him. "But we can move forward differently now." As the last car drove away, I closed the door and leaned against it, emotionally drained but strangely at peace. The path ahead wouldn't be easy. The legal process would be painful. Some family relationships might never fully recover. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I was standing on firm ground, seeing clearly and valuing myself enough to establish the boundaries I should have set long ago. 4 months have passed since that fateful Christmas dinner. Winter has slowly given way to spring, and with the changing seasons has come change in every part of my life. The legal proceedings against my mother are moving forward. She initially refused to respond to the formal demand for repayment, forcing me to file a lawsuit that exposed the fraudulent circumstances of the loan. Only then did she agree to mediation, though she continues to present herself as the victim of an ungrateful daughter to anyone who will listen. The family remains divided, but not as I feared. Most have recognized the pattern of manipulation and chosen to establish their own boundaries with my mother. My grandfather has moved permanently into my spare room, unwilling to continue living with someone he no longer trusts. My siblings visit regularly, our relationship stronger and more genuine than they've been in years. "I feel like I'm getting to know the real you," Laura told me last week as we walked through a local park watching her children play. "Not just Jessica the provider, but Jessica the person." It's been a difficult adjustment for everyone. Many family members had grown used to coming to me for financial help, and some initially tested the boundaries I'd established. My cousin asked for help with a down payment on a motorcycle. My aunt hinted about struggling with credit card bills. My nephew wanted expensive concert tickets. Each time I gently but firmly redirected the conversation away from money, focusing instead on offering emotional support or practical advice. "You were right," my brother Marcus admitted during a recent dinner at my apartment. "We had all fallen into unhealthy patterns. It was easier to ask you for money than to make tough financial decisions ourselves." The mediation with my mother eventually resulted in a settlement agreement. She agreed to transfer the Florida property to me as partial repayment of the loan, though it was worth less than half what she'd borrowed. The rest would be paid in monthly payments over 10 years, secured by a claim against any future property she might buy. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it allowed for some measure of justice, while avoiding a long court battle that would have further damaged family relationships. "Are you satisfied with the outcome?" my grandfather asked when I showed him the signed agreement. "Not entirely," I admitted. But this wasn't really about getting all the money back. It was about not letting her actions go without consequences. About standing up for myself for once. My grandfather squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you for that. It's one of the hardest lessons to learn, that sometimes love requires setting firm boundaries even when it hurts." Perhaps the most unexpected outcome of this painful chapter has been the formation of what I now think of as my chosen family. Friends who stood by me through the worst moments of discovery and confrontation. Colleagues who understood when I needed time off to deal with legal matters. Even a support group I joined for adult children of manipulative parents, where I found understanding from others who'd walked similar paths. Therapy has been a crucial part of my healing journey as well. Working with a skilled counselor helped me recognize the patterns established in my childhood that had made me vulnerable to financial manipulation. The deep need to prove my worth through providing that had blinded me to toxic dynamics. Generosity is beautiful, my therapist explained, but not when it comes from a place of obligation or fear. Not when it's used to buy love or avoid conflict. 7 weeks ago, I established the First Generation Achievers Fund, a non-profit organization that provides both financial help and mentorship to first-generation professionals facing pressure to support extended families. The fund offers financial literacy workshops, boundary-setting coaching, and grants for true emergencies that might otherwise trap successful individuals in cycles of financial exploitation. "You're turning pain into purpose," my grandfather observed when I showed him the fund's website. "Using your experience to help others avoid the same traps." Not everyone has supported my journey toward healthier boundaries. My mother continues to tell stories about my selfishness and greed. A few relatives have chosen to believe her version of events, finding it easier than confronting the uncomfortable truth about someone they love. I've had to accept that some relationships may never be repaired, and that's a grief I carry alongside my healing. Last weekend, I hosted a small gathering at my apartment. Not a family reunion in the traditional sense, but a coming together of people who truly care about each other. My grandfather, my siblings and their children, a few cousins who had chosen truth over comfortable denial, several close friends who had become as dear to me as any blood relation. As we sat around my dining table sharing a meal and genuine conversation, I looked at each face and felt deep gratitude. These were people who wanted to be in my life for me, not for what I could provide. People who had seen me at my most vulnerable and chosen to draw closer rather than exploit that vulnerability. People who respected my boundaries and expected me to respect theirs in return. "A toast," my grandfather proposed, raising his glass. "To family. Not just the one we're born into, but the one we choose and build through honesty, respect, and genuine love." As glasses clinked around the table, I realized that this authentic connection was what I'd been seeking all along. Not gratitude or obligation disguised as affection, but true belonging based on mutual respect and genuine care. The journey continues, of course. Healing is not a straight line, and there are still days when doubts creep in, when I question whether I made the right choices, when I miss the simplicity of being the unquestioned provider without the messiness of setting boundaries. But those moments grow less frequent as I learn to value myself beyond what I can give materially to others. The deepest lesson in all of this has been that true generosity comes not from emptying ourselves to fill others, but from the overflow of a well-nourished spirit. That love without boundaries isn't love at all, but unhealthy attachment. That sometimes the most loving thing we can do for ourselves and others is to say no, to require accountability, to insist on truth even when it's uncomfortable. As spring blooms outside my window, I find myself looking forward rather than back. The legal proceedings will eventually conclude. Family dynamics will continue to evolve. Some relationships will strengthen with time and truth. Others may need to be released with love and forgiveness. But through it all, I carry the knowledge that I am enough just as I am, not for what I can provide or produce or prove, but simply for being authentically myself, with all my strengths and flaws and still unfolding story. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took advantage of your generosity? How did you find the courage to stand up for yourself? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that setting boundaries isn't selfish. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. And remember, your worth isn't measured by what you give, but by who you are.